Hello guys, what's up? This is Chris. Welcome back. This is episode 7 of my Bloodborne playthrough. I'm going to shake it off real quick. I'm going to bow. There's a lot going on in this episode. But first, let me apologize for the lateness of this episode. Mainly because my editing software, Adobe Premiere, decided that it wanted to take a shit and basically ruin all the audio in my game. So there were parts of it. Luckily I caught it, because when I went back through it, I was like, why does it sound like I'm hitting barrels or vases, and I'm not hitting vases right now on this screen? So I had to go back. I had to figure out what was going on, delete some files, but forget about all that. We're not here for that. Enough of me crying about stuff. We're really here because we want to hear about this lore, and today there is a ton of it. There's going to be a lot of it. And right now I'm just running around Hunter's Dream right now looking for... I thought I was actually going to buy the Gascone stuff, but then I was like, maybe not. Maybe not. Mr. Gas, we're not gonna deal with your stuff. So I'm like, okay, let's just go. So the main thing I'm gonna do in this video before I start with any of the lore stuff is I'm really trying to look for a way around having to use the Hunter Chief emblem, and by the end of this episode I do find a way around it, and then I explore a little bit of the area behind it. I was actually very surprised I found a way around it. I wasn't 100% sure if there was going to be. I knew in most of these Demon Soul games or whatever, if they force you to buy something, there's usually a way around it also. They don't, what I should say is they don't force you to buy anything. There's usually a way around it in some way or form. And I don't know, I just kind of got lucky, I think. Because I ended up finding something, and then I find multiple things in this, and it gets crazy here. It starts off like right off the bat there. You see that chest down that hallway. There's going to be a ton of item descriptions in this episode, a ton of things I'm going to be talking about. Half of it may be true, half of it may be me just BSing out my mouth, just shit spewing out my mouth, just trying to make sense of what's going on in this world. I think the best way I'm going to try to explain this is I kind of want to do it like, to me, in my mind, the best way to separate what's going on is that there's going to be stuff that the humans are doing and the regular people, and then there's stuff that these things we learned from the last episode called the Great Ones, and they're kind of doing their own thing. And then at some point, I think you're going to figure out, or the game's going to help us figure out what those are. So first of all, let's talk about how that link happens. It's called communion. Several runes relate to blood, including communion, which raises the maximum number of blood vials one may carry. This rune represents the healing church and its ministers. Blood ministration is, of course, the pursuit of communion. Another secret symbol created by Carl, the runesmith of Bergenworth. I think one of the biggest things I kind of was thinking about these runes is that if you look at them, they all have etched markings on them. Kind of like almost hieroglyphic. Can't say that word. Pictures that mean something. You see them in Egyptian like monuments and things like that. And I don't know, give me a second, and I'll try to repeat that word again. It's my brain right now is just like I'm not gonna let you say that word. And basically, but what it's telling me is that these Bergenworth scholars, they were definitely able to maybe not read it 100% like fluently, but they were definitely able to understand it. And I think that has a big impact on what happens down in the tombs, because if you remember, I believe it was Alfred who told us that there were a group of scholars, Bergenworth scholars, who were digging around in these tombs, and they find something, and he says it's a holy medium. And he goes on about how this medium is what's directly linking all the holy stuff that's happening in Yharnam to what they found down there. Now, why I'm saying that it's important that they could read the runes and stuff is that it gives them an idea of what they find. It kind of gives them their motive to do what they do. And because if you don't know what's going on and you see a chalice, let's say this is what happened. I'm not saying this is what happened. Let's just pretend for a moment that they went down there. They were scounding around the tombs for a long time, and then all of a sudden they found an area, and there's a bunch of etched ruins everywhere in this room. And they're able to kind of decipher what it says, and they see a chalice on like an altar, let's say, and it's filled with this medium. For all intents and purposes right now, we can just say it's blood. Well, they can read what it kind of says, and then they look at this and they go, huh. And then at the same time, we know that these great ones influence them in some way or form. So you got all these things working on them. It kind of makes them make this decision at that point. What they do, I don't know yet. Do they take it out of the tomb first and they kind of just mess around with it, or do they right there all of a sudden be influenced and drink the blood or touch the blood in some form or fashion? It's hard to say. You can't really say, but you do know that something happens down there in these tombs, and that these Bergamo scholars definitely were seeking something, and they find this holy medium. So communion, that rune that we just saw, again, like I said, it's made by Carol, or secretly found by Carol, or whatever it says at the beginning. But it talks about how it has blood and communion in quotes in the description, right? And to me, when you quote something, you're kind of saying like blood quote, communion quote. And I guess what you should really start looking at is like, what does blood mean? What does communion mean, right? It's not what they're trying to say is it's not communion like you think it is. It's not blood like you think it is. That's what you do when you quote things. So it's kind of saying that maybe this blood is something else, or maybe it is a blood, it's just not the blood you're thinking, like it's not human blood, or what do they mean by blood, right? Maybe it's a substance that looks like blood. In any way or form, it has the quotes. And then communion is the same way. So communion on our planet, on Earth, in real life, is it's a group of people trying to bond with a higher being, right, or something that they believe is holy or spiritual. That's what communion is in our world. And that's kind of what I think is happening in this world. Is it's the same thing, except that they think they're bonding, right, with this thing. However, what's really happening is this thing is controlling them. It's not so much a bond as it is more like they're gonna get their way with this group of people who think they're communizing. That's not even a word. Don't use that ever as a word. But they think that they're bonding with this spirit, or bonding with this thing that they can't see or understand, which I'm assuming is going to be the great one, or a great one. And because like I said last time, we saw that there were multiple ones. It says great ones in the description, so there's probably multiple, but they think they're bonding with it. And in reality, what's really happening is it's not really bonding. It's more of like they are kind of having their way. And that's kind of the way I look at it. If you remember, I think Garmon earlier, and I don't remember what episode, maybe 2 or 3, he states that the hunters, when they go down to these I get stuck in this corner. I'm so bad about getting stuck in my environment. I think I've died. I think most of my deaths in this series have been me just getting stuck, not being aware of where I'm at and where I'm dodging into. But anyways, back to really what Garmon said, that chalices are the holy communion for hunters. So we know that the hunters go down to the tomb, and this is their way of communion with whatever they have. Now, could there be, that note was like behind me, so I turn around and I look and I'm like, what? And then I go, oh, I know what it's talking about. So this is the reason why I put this run back. Usually I would just skip to where I ran back, but I put this in there because I find a little secret here, which leads me to another item description that kind of just blows my mind. It's like really crazy, and it kind of fits in what we're talking about here in a second. But yeah, there's this holy communion, these chalices. Now, what I'm trying to figure out is, are all the people under one great one, and that's the only one they found, or is there multiple great ones, and each little section believes in a different one? Right, so we find a rune right here called Formless Adon, and this is really our first big hint on one of the formless ones, or one of the great ones. So you got a secret symbol left by Carol, runesmith of Bergenworth. The Great Adon lacking form exists only in voice and is symbolized by this rune. Those who memorize it enjoy a larger supply of quicksilver bullets. Human or no, the oozing blood is a medium of the highest grade and the essence of the formless Great One Adon. Both Adon and his inadvertent worshippers surreptitiously seek the precious blood. So right here, boom, just like that, we get a name for one of the supposedly great ones. Well, and then in there it says human or no, right? Maybe it is human, maybe it's not. It kind of leans both ways, right? It's saying that maybe it is. Maybe this is blood from a human, or maybe it's not blood from a human. Maybe it's something else, Right now, with all the stuff that's going on, it's kind of leaning towards that it's something else. But you never know. Maybe great ones were humans, or they were very, very smart humans, or very insightful ones. But regardless, this rune tells you of a great one, and his name's Adon. Now, there's a lot of things that come with that baggage right there, especially when it comes to lore. And this is when my mind was like, I was like, it didn't like explode, but it was like, okay, there's a lot. There's a lot in that one item description. There's just so much stuff to talk about. So I'm gonna try to speak about it as much as I can before I get to another part in this game, and you'll see where that is. And that place, just like if you thought, to me, like I saw that and I was like, wow, that's a lot of stuff. And then this other thing happens in this episode, and I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so much stuff just in this one episode about everything kind of going on, and it kind of just explodes the story open to where I'm almost like at the point where I'm like, I kind of don't really know what's going on anymore. Like, they just give you so much stuff. So I'm gonna try to make sense of it as much as I can. I had to think about it for a while, but I'm not, like I said, nothing I ever say is what is correct. It's just what I'm thinking at the moment. And especially as I play more and more of this game, all those thoughts can change really quickly, just depending on what I get from either cutscenes or what people say or item descriptions. So everything I say could just be a bunch of crap and a bunch of lies. So let's get back to that awesome rune that tells us everything. So the Great One Adon seems to only exist in voice. So in other words, it looks like that he is basically formless for right now, and that only the people who take his medium seem to be able to only hear him. They can't see him. They don't know if he truly exists in a form. But as there are things in this game with insight, maybe it's just that the people who used his medium didn't have enough insight to actually visually see him, and they could only just hear him. That's kind of what it takes. Now, this says that the oozing blood, this blood is oozing, which is weird, which to me sounds like it was coming out of something, maybe, because usually blood, when it's just sitting there, doesn't ooze. Usually Ivan Ooze. I don't know why I think of Ivan Ooze. Oh, God, that's an old movie. God, that's so long ago. But when I think of oozing blood, I'm thinking that it's coming out of something, or it's not, it's not sitting there. It's doing something. And it says this is the medium of the highest grade. And I think the key word there is medium, because remember, again, going back to what Alfred said, that the Bergenworth scholars, they found a holy medium underneath in the tombs. So this word medium has been used twice now. And so I'm starting to think the connection between what the scholars found and what this rune's talking about are the same thing. I think the scholars found Adon, the Great One, underneath the tombs. Now, like I said, there could be multiple Great Ones, and I don't necessarily think that maybe the hunters, or maybe as time progresses, these people realize that there are more than one Great One, and the hunters, they believe in something different, or they don't believe in something different, but they have a different Great One that they kind of like succumb to, and the church has a different Great One that they succumb to. The church seems to be, I believe, succumbing to whatever Adon is saying, or whatever he's talking about, whispering in their ears, because they built this whole area called the Church of Adon. So to me, that kind of makes that connection, that they're kind of connected together, that they're the ones that their Great One, the church's Great One, and the ministers and everything to it really belong to Adon and whatever he's whispering. As you read further on in that description, it says he's an essence of the formless Great One, right? And that he has inadvertent worshippers. Inadvertent really just means that his worshippers aren't believing in him because they want to. They believe in him because they kind of have to, in a weird way. I pick up the Radiant Sword Hunter badge here, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Basically, it's a better version of the Sword Hunter badge, and it unlocks Ludwig's weapons back at the Messenger Bath. But back to what an inadvertent worshiper is, it's basically, they're not necessarily forced to believe in him, but they're, because of something that happens, they have to believe in him, almost like there's no choice in the matter. They're inadvertent, I guess. I basically saying the worshippers came about through accident and not planned. It's not like they wanted to. they kind of now just have to because they can hear him constantly or whatnot. However you want to take that, but whatever you do take it, it's not a freedom of will to them to be able to do it. These worshipers now at this point, and I think that goes back to that communion thing where they think they're bonding with this thing, but in reality he has kind of control over them. He has the ability to use the people in ways he wants to. Now that doesn't necessarily mean the Great One's evil in any way, right? It just means that he has that ability to control them by altering their influences. That's what I take from it. I can't go in more depth there because there's nothing that says anything otherwise. And then that they say that they seek their blood in stealth. So does that mean that, I don't know how, does that mean that they seek this blood secretly? And they're not telling people about it? So this communion or this act of finding this blood down in the tombs, is it something of secret and only the people in the church know about it? And this ruin kind of exposes that, or and then it's talking about its worshippers, that they're the ones that seek his blood in stealth. So, how that plays into it, I'm not 100% sure yet because I don't know. Is it that they secretly go to these tombs and they're using communion, or basically taking the blood in secrecy and not telling anyone about it, which ultimately leads me to think that something happens in the church. Right there I cut out because that's where I was having all these different problems. I was trying to figure out what was going on with my video and my audio and all that. But I promise nothing happened in between there that I know of. I don't remember, right? I didn't level up or anything. How about that? And I didn't find any other items. But yeah. So it seems like there's a lot of secrecy going around the church. There's a lot of secrecy going around all these different covenants, right? And that's where I think it's ultimately leading to, is that there's different great ones, and different great ones are different, basically covenants. And I think they're trying, now taking a step back and away from the game and the story, I think the creators of the game really wanted to make it seem that way. They wanted covenants to be more of a thing in this game instead of what it was in the past games. So now the covenants are kind of built into the lore, in that these different great ones really are different covenants, and you can be part of these different covenants by, if you want to succumb yourself to these great ones. Now, like I said, does that necessarily mean certain great ones are evil and certain ones are good and bad? Of course, that could mean that way, right? That there could be good great ones, people that aren't evil, and then there could be evil ones. So that's kind of what that rune kind of just leads me down to believing. I can't really say anything else, but it's cool to get a name of one of the great ones and kind of explaining this area a little bit and explaining what this church believed in. I'm right now just looking around the landscape, just taking in the view. I think it's awesome. I'm like, man, I must be able to visit all these different places. I'm trying to see if I visited any of them. Right here I see a little thing down there, like of that circle, I guess, extension courtyard kind of thing. So I'm like, man, I must be able to get down there because I see staircases to it, and then I see it probably leads to that door. So I'm just like excited to really explore this area. I missed something right here. I walk over it twice. There's a note on the ground, and I do read it with my other character, so I do know what it says. It says the sky and the cosmos are one, the choir, and has the choir in quotes. This is the first time I've heard of the choir. I have no idea who they are, or what they are, or what they're trying to accomplish. It says something, the sky and the cosmos are one in the choir. So here's what I take from it. We were at Yargul, and we heard about them believing kind of in the moon, which to me, the moon could be a different great one. At this point, now that I see that Adon is a great one, maybe the moon's a great one, maybe the moon is Adon, I'm not 100% sure. But I know that they believe in a different great one, or they have their faith in a different great one. I think it's different right now because it seems like Adon is a little bit of a different great one than what they're trying to do in that other village. And like last time, I thought that the church found out that this other village was believing in this other great one, and that they kind of had a little like civil dispute, I guess you could say, in between them, and that's why you saw the dark beast guarding the door to the place and all this stuff. That's kind of what I'm thinking. That's why I think they're separate. I remember this little cliff right here, and I'm like, ooh, maybe I can jump down there. And this kind of leads me to the new area, and where there's a bunch of just crazy stuff going on. But back to the sky and the cosmos. So And it says the sky and cosmos are one. The choir, who the choir are, I have no idea, but I do know choirs exist in churches, so I'm thinking the choir is part of something in the church. Not 100% sure what. It could be maybe like a different, just like section of it, that maybe they believe in something a little different than the rest of the church, or maybe they're like the upper echelons of it. They have more knowledge and insight of what's going on, and maybe have a deeper understanding of the world. I'm not sure. I just know that that note says that, and that is what I can only get from it. But again, we get stuff about the cosmos and the moon. We've been talking about that before, so it kind of brings in the light all that stuff. So this is weird. I see a door down there, and I'm like, how do I get to that? It doesn't look like I can survive this fall. First of all, in my mind, I'm like, there's no way. So maybe I have to get to where that. You see where that it looks like a gravestone is over there. I was like, maybe I have to get to that first, and then I can drop down to the door. So I'm thinking about how I'm gonna do this, and I'm like, and I just sit here and I'm like, maybe I can jump to that thing and then jump again. And in my mind, I don't know what I'm thinking, because right now when I look at it, I'm like, how am I gonna jump from that one to that other place where the gravestone is to land there? I'm like, that's not gonna be possible now that I look at it. But back then I was, while playing, I was like, anything's possible. So let's give it a shot. And I'm gonna tell you, it doesn't work out. It does not go as planned, guys. It doesn't go as the way I wanted it to, let's say. So let's see this amazing jump right here. Look at what I do, kind of land on it. I was surprised about that, and I missed that. I hit that. Then I face plant the floor. I do see a guy over there though, so that interests me. When I fell to the ground, I was like, ooh, there's like a werewolf. So I fast forward. I bring it back to where I pick up my blood echoes, and then I decided to go straight for that platform. And now in game, I was like, there's no way, but let's just do it. And so I'm practicing my run. You can see me like I'm scared to do this. I don't know why. It wasn't really hard to get back here. So I make it nowhere near that, right? But I do land here and I survive. So I was like, it worked. It didn't, not as planned, but it worked. I still got here. Wondrous fall. I should have voted for that as a good thing. Now we enter this wonderful area, and I promise we'll get back to that Radiant Sword Hunter badge a little bit later, and where it kind of, I think it makes more sense to talk about it a little bit later. But we enter here, and I fucking flipped my shit. I'm not gonna lie, I had a cuss. I was like, what? It's called Abandoned Old Workshop. I kind of walk into it, and then all of a sudden, immediately, the first thing I notice is this is Hunter's Dream. Right off the bat, and I start freaking out. Like, you know, you get that like tingling sense in you when you discover something in a game. That's kind of the way I felt when I saw this area. I was like, what? Oh my god. So is that other area an actual dream? Is it a representation of this area? Why? Like, whose version of this is it? And then as you explore this area, you kind of get a little bit more of an idea of who that is, whose version of that area is, and then you kind of start thinking, why am I in this person's dream, or why am I in this person's world? And that's kind of the way I'm going to take it. And as I explore this area, we'll kind of see. And there's a ton of items here that you get with a bunch of item descriptions that just kind of throw you into a loop, and it starts making you really think. The first thing I find are the doll clothes, and I'm like, oh my god. Are you serious? So did this doll actually exist in this world, in this plane? So I go check out its item description. Luckily, all of them are pretty much the same. It says a deep love for the doll can be surmised by the fine craftsmanship of this article and the care with which it was kept. It borderlines on mania and exudes a slight warmth. And it says that for all of them. The top part is the only part that changes. It says likely a spare for a dress up. And you know that this was created by someone. This garment, and it was created for the doll. And then I walk up here and I see an old hunter bone, and I'm like, oh great. Now what do we got here? This is an item you can actually use to, I think, learn a spell, but you have to have 15 arcane. That's why it's grayed out on mine, because I don't have any arcane. Can't learn it, but it does have an item description we can read. It says the bone of an old hunter whose name is lost. It is said that he was an apprentice to old Grimon and a practitioner of the art of quickening, a technique particular to the first hunters. It is most appropriate that hunters, carriers of the torch who are sustained by the dream, would tease an old art from his remains. I think it's tease. I thought it said lease when I first saw it. Would tease an old art from his remains. I think the last paragraph is really just saying that you can learn something from this, and that it's appropriate for hunters to do this, apparently, especially that are sustained by the dream. So I think one of the things that that item is alluding to is that one Germain, we all know, is the first hunter, and then he had an apprentice, and who that apprentice is, we don't know yet. I started thinking that it may have been Ludwig or however you want to say his name, but I don't know what time reference they are to each other. Like, I don't know if Ludwig was right after Germán, or if Germán kind of set up things for the hunter and then Ludwig came along and kind of separated from that. I'm not 100% sure how closely in time they were related. I checked this doll out and then I saw something really strange. Its fingers moving. That creeped me out. I was like, oh god, this is so creepy. And I was just like, how weird that model looks and everything. I just was waiting for it to just like stand up and start like beating on me or something, or just freaking me out. Then we come to this item, this wonderful item. The minute I picked this up, I was like, Silent Hill. I don't know why. Immediately I was like, this is Silent Hill. What's going on? Like, what is this shit umbilical cord stuff that we're talking about all of a sudden? 1/3 of umbilical cord. It's not even in great English. 1/3 of an umbilical cord, or is it one? Anyways, a great relic, also known as the cord of the eye. Every infant great one has this precursor to the umbilical cord. Every great one loses its child and then yearns for a surrogate. The third umbilical cord precipitated the encounter with the pale moon, which beckoned the hunters and conceived the hunter's dream. Used to gain insight, and so they say, eyes on the inside, although no one remembers what that truly entails. Looking at the actual picture of it, it looks like it was on like a very nice parchment, and it looks like it's oozing something out of it, which is something that I was looking at and I was like, yeah, it kind of looks like it's oozing shit. So I don't know if that's kind of the same thing with Adon. If there's different umbilicals, if that's true, are there like lesser great ones and greater great ones, or like how does this all work? And then I walk over here. There's another item in this cabinet, and this one's at least a little more easier to understand what it is. Well, not so much that what it is, but what it's trying to do. It actually blatantly kind of just gives you an information. It says a small, very ordinary hair ornament, although it has been lost for quite some time. One can still see signs of the care which kept this tasteful ornament was once kept. Its color would stand out most brilliantly against a head of grayish hair. So this thing was kept very nicely. It's really old, but you can tell that it was really well kept, and that it goes against gray hair. And I'm like, wait a minute, does this puppet have gray hair? Because that's the only thing I could think of at the time, and I was like, it does. So you know immediately that ornament belongs to that puppet, or at least a puppet. Why there's more than one, what this area is, it just seems like the Hunter's Dream is really Germán's place, and we're inside of it for some reason. That's kind of the way I'm headed with that idea, is that he dreamt of that place up. Why we're in his dream, why we're in his little world or area, is still kind of unknown. Like, what is he trying to accomplish by bringing us there? And what powers does he have to be able to do that? Like, who is he pleasing? Me. So in other words, I think Germán is a part of a great one in itself. He believes in some other covenant, and I'm going to start calling them covenants because it's a lot easier to say and it makes more sense. So he kind of believes in his own covenant, and that covenant has its own ideas and its own whatever that great one, that covenant leader would want. They're using, I think, Germán for its purposes, and we're using his dream to make the hunter more comfortable about the situation, and Germán's kind of just a puppet. Now that item we just found, the 1/3 of umbilical cord, that item just has so much to it that I don't even know like what I can say about it. Like, I was actually debating just reading it and then being like, we're gonna leave this alone until we find more information, because I was like, I have no idea, but I can take some things from it, and I'm just gonna take it for face value, right? I'm just gonna say it's telling me exactly what I need to know, that there's no riddles or anything entwined in the description, that everything is just what it says. But first I head back because I head back here actually because I saw those two items in the place I was dropping down that I couldn't get to. So I'm looking at her because I was like, are you the same thing? And it looked pretty same. And then you get something different. You get to give that ornament. I saw it when I clicked on something real quick, and I was like, wait. I clicked on talk because I thought she might have said something, but then I realized there was a section. So listen to what she says.
I can't remember. Not a thing, only I feel. A yearning, something I never felt before. What's happening to me? Tell me, Hunter. Could this be joy?
So she takes your ornament. I believe she takes the ornament from you. I actually didn't check to see if she gives it back to you or not. But I believe she takes it from you and she gives you the Tearstone. And a real quick look at what... I don't see the ornament in here anymore. So it says a silver shining Tearstone used to change into a droplet blood gem that fortifies any weapon. Blood gem. A doll sheds neither blood nor tears, and thus nature remains unknown. Whoever thinks this is precious must be troubled by severe nativity. I can't speak today. Basically saying that you're severely ignorant of what's really going on. I know what the word means. I just can't speak very good English. Very English is very bad. But so it's saying that if you think this thing is precious or that there's some sentimental value to that stone, then you're very ignorant of what's really going on. I don't know if that's the actual item description playing with you, saying that there's no preciousness to this because it came from a doll and dolls don't have feelings. So how could it be precious? But in reality, you saw what happened and you could easily be like, no, it's precious because she felt joy. And from that joy, she gave me this stone. So I don't know how it's playing that, but that's kind of it is silver gem, so maybe it has something to do with her color of her hair. But that's the basics I can get from that for right now until we get something else more about this puppet or this doll and what exactly it really is. I come over to this this messenger to see if there's anything new, and I think it's because I got that badge and I wanted to see what it unlocked. So yeah, I wanted to check out what was going on here. So I do see that we got a holy blade from Ludwig that unlocked. It is said that the silver sword was employed by Ludwig, the first hunter of the church. When transformed, it combines with its sheath to form a great sword. The Healing Church workshop began with Ludwig and departed from Olgermon's techniques to provide hunters with the means to hunt more terrifying beasts, and perhaps things still worse. And then we go into his rifle that I find also. It says it is said that this rifle was employed by Ludwig, the first hunter of the church. Its long, heavy barrel makes up in range for what it lacks in reload speed. This rifle by Ludwig exhibits several departures from the workshop's design, suggesting that the church anticipated much larger beasts to hunt. And I kind of ad-libbed everything at the end of that. I also noticed that there's the old stuff that they had, and then now there's this Tomb Prospector hood. Attire of a Tomb Prospector who explores the old labyrinth on behalf of the Healing Church. The Healing Church traces its roots to Bergenworth and is therefore aware of the rune's true importance. They contain much more than the mere hunter trinkets indeed. They hide the very secrets of the old great ones, sought after by those with the insight to imagine greatness. So remember that, or the church, or they were saying that the people who believed in Adon, they were seeking blood secretly. And I think that's what the Tomb Prospector outfit is showing, is that though the people who went down there secretly, they knew of something that was a little more in depth in there. And it also says that the tombs isn't just hunter trinkets. You know, Germán was saying earlier that you went down there, that it's hunter's holy communion to go down there and hunt and do things and to find items, right? That's kind of the whole purpose of the Chalice dungeons in the game, is that you go down there and you can find really good items down there for hunters. But the church is like, no, there's something more in depth. There's something deeper in there. There's something that is way more profound, and it's gonna be us, the church, who finds it, and we understand the greatness of the tombs. We understand what's going on, and we're gonna go through it secretly. And if you look at those Tomb Prospector clothes, they kind of look like they're meant to hide. You know, they're meant to be done secretly. So that's where I'm starting to see that connection, that the church is using the tomb. And remember, everything that the church learned, they learned from Bergenworth and the scholars there, because they're directly connected. It was said by Alfred that everything holy in Yharnam was directly related to what they found in Bergenworth. So right now, Adon is a hot topic. He's a hot topic right now in this game, and especially for me, because I'm really thinking about like what he is. Who is he? Is he good or is he bad? Right now it looks like he's not the greatest the greatest great one you could possibly imagine, but maybe he is trying to do something. Maybe he has an alternate motive that just regular people don't understand. But for right now, the whole game so far, I've thought the church was kind of the bad guy, and now I'm kind of waning a little bit. I don't know if they're necessarily the bad guy, but I don't know if they're good either, or whether their method's good. There's some stuff I find a little bit later on in this episode also that kind of shows that maybe they weren't necessarily good. Maybe no one was necessarily good, and these great ones are doing their kind of thing. Like I said at the beginning, it's kind of easier to take it if you separate it to what people are doing and what's going on there, and then trying to figure out what the great ones are doing and what their motives are, and then maybe figuring out the connection in between the two and how they're using maybe the humans to find their deeds and do what they want against each other. I'm not 100% sure if that's the way to look at it or not, but right now that's the easiest way for me to like kind of separate things instead of trying to make the whole big picture at once. Like separate that picture down into parts and then figure out from there how to piece that puzzle together. So now, like I said, we're gonna I do a bunch of gameplay here, and I don't think I find too much else lore wise, at least not for a little bit. I'm gonna say, oh, actually I find something at the bottom of this pit. Then after that, I don't think I find anything lore wise for quite a bit. I do find the way around the gate is what I end up really finding. But other than that, we can start really talking about the abandoned old workshop and really what is going on there. And I've kind of been avoiding the old, the 1/3 of the umbilical cord, it seems like, but I'm getting to it, and it's probably I'm gonna talk about it here pretty soon. But the hunter's dream, like we saw, is the exact replica of the old abandoned workshop. We saw from the description on the weapons for Ludwig that he created the church workshop. He was the first hunter of the church, not the first hunter of the church. So that's why I'm starting to think more and more that he was the apprentice to Germán, and something happened between Germán and Ludwig that he didn't believe in what he didn't really. It's hard to tell because I want to say that he's his apprentice, but then I see his bones are buried at the workshop. So why would they bury him? Did they actually care for each other, and just Ludwig had a dislike? They actually liked each other, but Ludwig was like, no, we gotta hunt bigger beasts for whatever reason or what's going on. But maybe Germán knew something a little more in depth, and was like, no. Or how is that all working? Because if Germán was the first hunter and he was hunting monsters and stuff, but apparently there was a need to hunt bigger monsters, and the church knew this. Maybe it was the church secretly knew by going into the tombs deeper with their secret people that there were going to be bigger beasts out there than what Germán is trying to hunt, and they were trying to talk to Germán about it, and Germán was like, nah, man. No, we're not going to do that. And then Ludwig was like, we have to. Or like I said, could their times be so far apart from each other that Germán could be more tied to like Bergenworth, and Ludwig could be more tied to the church. And then there's a big time frame skip right there where we don't necessarily know what happens, but they don't really know each other at all, and that the apprentice is someone completely different. It's hard to say right now. I like the idea that Ludwig is his apprentice, but at the same time, a lot of things don't make sense, especially if he separated and he created the church workshop. Now, I find the beast rune here, and it's, again, Carol. You see his name again. Transcription of the War of the Labyrinth Beast. The bearer of the beast rune has accentuated temporary transformation effects. Beast is one of the early Carol runes, as well as one of the first to be deemed forbidden. The discovery of blood entailed the discovery of undesirable beasts. So right there, that rune kind of tells you that whatever they found in those tombs was whatever created the beasts to begin with. Maybe the nature of humans, and whatever gets a hold of that blood, whatever the nature of that being is what comes out ultimately. So humans, their ultimate nature is beast, right? I think there's a saying that says something like that, that the nature of a human is beasts. And then, like, let's say, let's make something up, like a turtle gets it, like, what is its nature, that kind of thing. Does that matter, or is that how it works? But we do know that right there, that rune tells us that the blood and the beast is definitely connected, and that once they found the blood in the tombs, or the blood, quote unquote, in the tombs, then that's what really connected and started the plague. that's going on. Is that directly related to Adon and his blood, or is that related to some other blood found or some other covenant, like the hunter? Maybe they found a different great one. Not sure. Like I said, there's a lot of things that could be going on right now, and there's not a lot of things tying things together. They're kind of like shotgunning you information, and you're kind of like putting these little different worlds together, and you're missing everything that connects all those worlds. So right now, I'm just making a bunch of speculations off of what I see. So back to that abandoned workshop again. Like I said, it's hard to figure out the relationship between Germán and Ludwig, if there is even a relationship at all. I'm not 100% sure. The doll outfit, I think the doll is a very important character. Right now, I just feel like that it's a very important character, but we just don't know enough about her yet and what she means or what she is. We do see that in the 1/3 of umbilical cord, or the cord of the eye, that every great one loses its child and wants a surrogate. To me, the doll is a surrogate. Like, it's the perfect kind of surrogate. It's an empty vessel that can hold something, right? So is the doll the creation of one of the great ones, and they used Germán to create it? I'm not 100% sure, or to keep it alive or keep it safe, right? I'm not 100%. That I can't tell you, is that true or not. It makes sense, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's right. It's a cool concept, though, if I really think about it, that the doll is the surrogate, and that apparently every great one loses its infant. That was the other thing. I was like, how? Like, if they're so great, why are they always losing their kids? Like, what's going on? How is that happening? Why is it happening? It says every great one loses its child. Every great one loses its child. Not like this great one, but every great one loses its child and then wants a replacement. So they lose it, and then they want something to replace it, and it talks about it being a surrogate. It definitely sounds like Germán and this puppet are up to something. The puppet may not know exactly, its destiny, because it is just a surrogate. It's just something. As you could tell when you gave her that ornament, she was like, I feel joy for this, but, I really, is it joy? Is that what I'm really feeling? So she kind of seems very ignorant of everything. But Germán, on the other hand, doesn't, and he seems to be very, very part of something. What it is, I'm not sure, but you do definitely live in his little world, his little dream, and it eases you into the game, or it eases you into the story. So that's why maybe this great one is using him, is to make him able to find people to help him a lot better. Again, it's pure speculation. Not 100% sure. Another thing the umbilical cord says is that the 3rd umbilical cord precipitated the encounter with the pale moon. So again, I'm just going to take all this for face value, basically saying that whatever happened to this cord, or once it appeared, or once it was used, or once maybe someone took blood from it, or I don't know, whatever they did, it precipitated the encounter with the pale moon, basically saying that all of a sudden, immediately once it was used, or whatever happened to it, that it created a sudden encounter with the pale moon. Whatever the pale moon means, I think it's tied into whatever pale blood is. And then remember, Yargul, there was something about the pale blood sky. So whenever this thing was immediately used, that's what happened. This right here is crazy, this enemy. This scared the shit out of me when it happened. Look at it. Oh my god. I was like, what is going on? I thought I was going to die, because I was like, oh, that must be an instant kill. But I was able to get away from it. If you look at it, it has a very Lovecraftian appearance to it, at least. I think it does. It has like the tentacle monster face and a big tentacle that was sucking my brain out. What I'm thinking it was sucking out was it was trying to get, I don't know, did it take insight? I didn't even actually check. That just dawned on me that it could have took insight from me. That's interesting. I don't know what those are, but they're creepy. maybe they're infant great ones. Who knows? But back to, so apparently this 3rd umbilical cord happened. Whatever happened to it had a sudden encounter with the pale moon, and then when the line right after that says it beckoned the hunters and conceived the hunter's dream. So this pale moon appeared. Maybe the umbilical cord and the pale moon. Maybe the pale moon is one of a great one, and when it appeared, it's what created the hunter's dream, and it beckoned hunters, or started creating beasts from the hunters, from whatever blood they took in. It's very very weird. I'm back at the cathedral ward, and I'm like, oh snap. This is where I kind of realized stuff. I'm like, oh, I think I know where I'm kind of at, and then I do some checking, and I figure it out. So yeah, so this pale moon beckoned hunters and created or conceived the hunter's dream. So was hunters okay and cool at first, and then when this pale moon appeared, that's when they started turning into beasts and things started going crazy? Or was it always like that on small amounts, and then when this pale moon came out, it went absolutely nuts with it, and it went just beyond control? And then it started dawning on me, I'm like, what world am I in? Like, where am I at? And I start thinking about what stuff looks like around me. It looks very decrepit, old, right? There's a bunch of statues that all look like people like wanting something by offering their hands out, or they're crying, or their sorrow. This church has a place like that where these statues are just very just disturbing, right? And they're not what you would think a holy entity would have as. And then at the very beginning of the game, remember we're walking around Yarnum, there were just coffins everywhere, just tied up. And I'm not talking about like one or two in a spot, they were just lined up against the wall. So I'm starting to really think, I'm like, am I in a real world? Like, is this a real place, or is this kind of a stop in time, or is this a dream that I'm in? And then I'm starting to think, like, I go, man, this game better not be just all a dream. It may be, though, maybe all a dream, but hopefully they find a good reason. This brings up Blood Hunters of Canehurst. It's a recipe secret closely guarded by the line of nobles inhabiting the castle. What castle I haven't seen yet. Canehurst sounds like an important figure or an important ideal. And it may be another great one, or a different type of great one that some people are following. So now I'm getting like what I'm starting to think everything. Like I see, boom, boom. I'm like, this must be a great one. This must be. I'm trying to make sense of stuff, and that's not necessarily true. What I'm saying, but it's starting to make me think that I'm really trying to. I believe in that there's different great ones, and they're the different covenants that you're going to see in this world, and some may be more important than others, and maybe there's one that's great and is an overall. Kind of like if you think about mythology, like Greek mythology, there were a bunch of different gods, but there was Zeus, who was like the main guy, right? Maybe that's kind of the same concept here, except with very Lovecraftian creatures called the Great Ones, and then there's like an ultimate great one that kind of heads over everything, and who knows what's going on. It could be very diabolic in the essence that they're all trying to become that greater one. Who knows, right? Maybe that's why they all lose their infants, is because this other great one doesn't allow them to have it. I don't know. This is like me separating again the world, right? There's that world of the great ones and what they kind of deal with every day, and they use humans to do their bidding, and then the humans are doing their bidding, but they kind of have their own stuff. And then, like I said, there might be that connection in between the two. The umbilical cord may be that connection between them. Again, this item was very, like, I don't know if it's just bad English, but if it's 1/3 of umbilical cord, I don't know if they're like not able to fit. I thought this was a weird graphic design. You see a little staircase leading up to a door, but then there's nothing there. It just drops. I was like, okay, I guess that works. But yeah, it says 1/3 of umbilical cord, and I don't know if that's, to me, proper English would be 1/3 of an umbilical cord, right? So I'm like really looking at this description of this item, and I'm like, well, is that what it's trying to say? Because I would forgive it. I mean, if that's what it's trying to say, that's what it's trying to say. I'm not saying that's not. But later on, you read in the description, it says the third umbilical cord, right? So there's a second, and there's a first, and there could be a fourth, but there's at least a first and second in my mind, right? There's the first umbilical cord, and then there's a second umbilical cord. But it wasn't until the third one where it precipitated the encounter with the pale moon. So what are these, right? Things. So when I see 1/3 of umbilical cord, maybe it's one, and then there's multiple thirds of umbilical cords. Like, I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if that makes sense, like, to me. And I don't know if there's another item in the game like this, or if there's multiple versions of this item, and maybe one will say second third of umbilical cord or something. But to me, it seems like third of umbilical cord is the name of it, and then this is one of those. You know what I'm saying? And it's not 1/3 as in it's like a third of something, like you cut a pie into thirds. It's not like that. If it was, I think 1/3 is hyphenated in English, and then I would think they would use the word "an" in there. but I don't know. But then again, when you have like translation things like that, I don't remember if this game was made in Japan first or if it was actually made here. I don't know. I have to look that up. Actually, I should have probably looked that up beforehand if there was translation issues or anything like that. I haven't seen any in the game so far. So that's why I'm starting to think, like, how can I decipher what this title means? And it's weird that I delve into just the way this is said, but it could mean, but the very essence of the way and what it's talking about could change everything, right? If it's third of something, then there's two other parts plus this one, and it makes a whole. But if there's more than one of these exact items, then it's something completely different, and it could maybe allude to the fact that there's more great ones, that they all have different umbilical cords, that they're different ages. Maybe the third umbilical cord is like just a way of saying a different age, or the third age, but the third reborn or the third cycle maybe. It's just all, like, right now it's just all speculation because I need to know more. I need to find more items. But like I said, this thing opens up a whole can of just worms, and I'm just like blown away. And I'm just really excited to figure out what's kind of going on with that. So ultimately, by now, we find out a little bit more about what is Ludwig. Ludwig is the first hunter of the church. Germán is the first hunter ever, right? Germán is, I guess, in that essence, should be very, 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 very old. And it said that. I think the doll says he's very, very old. He pops in and out of his dream world, which I'm thinking now is Hunter's dream is like his world. He seems to never be there, actually. He sees you for like a second. Like whenever you do something important in the game, he kind of pops up, and then he kind of tells you what to do next. Like he's like, this is where you need to go. This is what you need to do. And then he disappears. He leaves a note for you, just in case you forget. But then even that disappears after a while, and he's just gone. So I'm just like, okay, well, that's great, Germán. Thanks, bro. Thanks for helping me out. And really now I'm trying to figure out what are the connections between Germán and Ludwig, Germán and the church, Germán and Bergenworth. Like, who is this guy? Because now he's got me kind of on, like, I am now suspicious of him. At first I was like, he's kind of helping me out, but now I'm more like, I don't know if he's helping me out or is he using me to get what he wants. And through him, a great one is using him to use me to get what they want. That's kind of the way I look at it. I believe earlier we saw something call it an old great one, and this is kind of going back to the ties of Demon Souls in itself, right? In Demon Souls it was the old one, I believe is what it was called. Are there any ties between this game and Demon Souls? It's still hard to say, right? I believe the word Umbasa was actually taken out of this game, but I'm not 100% sure. I have to go. I've looked up stuff about it, about Umbasa in this game is what I'm trying to say. I looked up, and I get things that say that it's there, and then I get things that say it's not there. I didn't get it in my playthrough, but I didn't again try for it because I really didn't know it was actually supposed to happen or not. I just heard about it after I started looking up stuff about the boss. But Umbasa would mean that there's some kind of tie between this world and Demon Souls. Now, if it's not there, then you can't really assume anything other than that they do say old great ones in this game, and then there are old ones in Demon Souls. If that's the case, maybe the old one in Demon Souls, right? This is kind of separate from everything I've been talking about. I just wanted to say that. I'm not, and this is actually pure speculation because there's nothing else. Maybe the old one in Demon Souls is just one of the great ones. And remember, he did influence people with his souls and created the soul arts. So he has that ability as well. But in Demon Souls, you thought he was the almighty one, like he was it, right? But in this game, if it's connected in any way possible, you would think that the old one is actually just separate. That there's more than one of him, more than one type of him, not necessarily more like same versions of him, just multiple versions. But there's the old one, and there's Adon, and then there's Mensis, I guess I can call him for right now. I don't know what else to call it. Maybe Canehurst. I don't know. Maybe these are names of all great ones, and that's just the way you can take it, right? And whatever happened in Demon Souls happened long, long ago. It's like very, very long time ago. because if you remember, that game was mostly like chivalrous knights and things like that. Now that brings me all the way back to the item we got close to the beginning, called the Radiant Sword Hunter badge. Now, like I said, it had to do with knights and chivalry. That item actually describes knights and chivalry. It says that the Radiant Sword Hunter badge was given to an ancient line of heroes dating back to the very early age of honor and chivalry. I actually tried to look up to see if there was any kind of emblem in Demon Souls that matched the Radiant Sword Hunter badge, in any way possible. I couldn't find anything, so that was kind of a red herring in a way. But it does talk about a time long ago where there was honor and chivalry. Does that know? Oh, that scared the shit out of me, by the way. When I was playing, I was like, "Oh god, where's the fire come from?" Could that be the connection? I don't think so, because in Demon Souls we never heard anything about this line of heroes and Ludwig and all that stuff. So to me, that world and Demon Souls don't exist really together yet, right? Because what could have happened was Demon Souls could happen, and then there was like crumble and dismay and all this, and then something else happened that grew from that, and that could have been the world that we're in today, or they could not be connected at all. It's hard to tell right now without any other items to really connect the games. So that's my kind of spiel on the connections between Demon Souls in this game right now. Here's the shortcut. That's the door. That's the gate that you have to use the chief emblem thing on to open. But as you can see, I found my way around it, and I was like, awesome. Don't have to spend 10,000 souls now. However, I'm guessing if you're doing a repeat playthrough, it'd probably just be easier just get that item and just run through here instead of doing that whole back race through. And of course, if you're speedrunning, that's, it'd be way easier just to buy the item and get through here instead of finding the back way. At least I think it is. I think I saw a speedrun time of like an hour and something minutes through this game. And I don't remember if it was New Game or not, or New Game Plus. But I saw something real quick about it. I think it was on Reddit or something like that. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Someone's already speedrunning. Now we're getting into kind of like the suburbs around the church. And we find this poison knife. It says this carved knife is as thin and sharp as a surgeon's blade, often used for self-defense by special doctors in the healing church. They say that hunters traditionally avoid the use of poison, likely because the poison is too slow to act. And then we find actually a set of clothes down here that kind of make me think again the church isn't a great entity, but maybe at the same time this is the only way they could think of fixing something of a problem. But we do talk to some people in these windows. There's actually a lot of people to talk to down here. Some more sane than others, some extremely insane. But we do get one to go back to the church for safety. And this person is kind of a jerk. This person doesn't believe me or who I am. He just kind of sits back there. I also need to go check back in with Gilbert, see what that guy's up to. Is he just still talking about the same old? Is he going to give me some more information? And I have no idea where Alfred went. I think I searched for him. I don't remember if it was with this character or the other character I'm playing, but I went back to search for him, and then he wasn't there. And I was like, I think it was in this playthrough. And I think I did it in an episode, and I was like, okay, I guess you don't exist anymore, or something happened to you, or ran off to do something, which NPCs in this game like to do. So I really wanted to talk to him about other things to see if he had something else to say, because he seems to be very knowledgeable. Remember, he's a hunter he's an apprentice to Ligarius or something like that, and he's the what can I say? He's an apprentice to hunting Vile Bloods, but me and him don't hunt the same thing. So Vile Bloods is something completely different. I hunt beasts because that's what my hunter race does, I guess, and his is something else. Again, maybe something to do with the fact that Vile Bloods are a different Great One source, and Alfred, it believes in a different Great One, or if he's part of the church, then he believes in that. I don't know. There's so many things now that open up. So here I can tell this lady, who sounds very lady of the night, is how I would say, kind of person. But I tell her about this cool place. I get a little scared here in a minute because I turn around and I talk to him again, and he's like, what are you talking about, this lady? She's probably just gonna steal shit from you. And I was like, damn it. Hopefully she's not what's his face, Pate. Or I think that's his name, Pate, right? from the other games, the one that backstabs you throughout the game. Man, I remember the first time I played Demon Souls, and I let that happen. I actually let what's his face free from his cell, and he just went on a rampage and like killed everyone in the Nexus, and I was like freaking out, like legitimately like freaking out because I had no idea what was going on. I was like, I thought my game was glitching at first, and then I realized, and I finally I think I actually had to look it up because I had no idea. Like I was really just confused about what was going on. I was just like, oh my god, I can't believe this game did that to me. It was insane. I think I actually restarted because of how bad it got. So I think that's really like all we can really talk about what's going on today with all that lore. I mean, it's a lot of stuff, right? I could probably spend like, I don't know, a semester on the Abandoned Workshop. No, I'm playing, but like I could really spend a lot more time talking about it. But again, I don't have anything that connects anything within that area to anything on the outside. It creeped me out when I got there. I knew that I was going to be finding some stuff that I was freaking out about, and I did. And everything I found in there, I was just like, oh my god, here we go. Here's some more information that's not going to connect to anything else that I found. And that's pretty much what happened, as of right now anyways. So we got this black church hat and this black garment, basically, and it's called church garment. Attire of healing church hunters. Most healing church hunters are elementary doctors who understand the importance of early prevention of the scourge, achieved by disposing of victims and even potential victims before signs of sickness manifest themselves. Their black attire is synonymous with fear and that peculiar Yarnman madness. It's basically saying the same thing. The holy shawl, symbol of the healing church, flutters proudly on their back. So these guys were they were church hunters, but they weren't in essence like what Ludwig was. They were kind of a shadow version, I guess you could say, of them. The church engages in the hunt in a medical capacity. When cancer is discovered, one must pinpoint its location, reach in, and wrench it from the host's bosom. And it seems like these guys kind of did the dirty deeds. Now, if you remember in the sewers, there were people down there that looked like they had their legs cut off. I guess that's what they mean by disposing of victims. Whatever they did, they were trying to get rid of these people from the city before it even happened. So the church finds something out. They do something, or they find something out where this city ends up going really bad really quickly, and they're trying everything they can to prevent it from spreading. One of them seems like, they're doing these kind of things. Another one is they just shut a whole city off from everyone else. That's Old Yarnum, right? They burn it down. They find fire to be a good way to get rid of these things. I mean, they do everything possible that they can to basically try to get rid of this plague. And I think really what happens is they're using inside the church themselves. There's like the other people who kind of know what's going on. They understand because they know they're finding this power, this medium underground, thanks to the Bergenworth scholars. But at the same time, they know they need to stop what's going on because people are dying like really quickly, and people are not believing in them anymore, maybe, in that essence. So that's what that is, and it's very shady, and it's kind of what brings me back to the church not being maybe the greatest of people, but it could have been them just freaking out. The poison knife is a good example of kind of how the church kind of strayed maybe from what they did. And then what I'm thinking is maybe ultimately there was some disarray between the church hunters and the church itself, the way things were going. I guess to me it sounds like Ludwig and the Radiant people who had the Radiant sword badge were supposedly holy and honorable, right? Do we take that for face value and really think they were? And say that they find out what the church is doing and they kind of separate from them? Or is that just a term that they're using to kind of trick you into thinking that they were honorable and holy, when in reality they were just beasts, in themselves, and that there was nothing really honorable or holy about them? I really feel like there was in this world that there was a lot of disconnection between something they believed in at first, and then all of a sudden civil war kind of broke out between different people, including like the city of Yargul and the church, and then maybe even inside the church itself, and then maybe Gurman in the church. Like there's all these different things where things weren't being seen directly the same way, and then all that could be explained by what the Great Ones are, right? What they're thinking. No evidence to prove any of this, but you do see a lot of creepy things like those guys. Just Cthulhu looking creepy. I'm trying to get a good look of its face right there. You can see it really well. It is just all sorts of nasty. Why is it not a wolf? Why is it a different beast altogether? Would be a good question, I think, to ask about that. Is it part of what a Great One is? Maybe the Great Ones. Remember that statue in Yargul? Maybe that's a statue of a Great One, or of a lesser Great One, or something that spawns from a Great One. You don't really know yet, but you can start making these speculations and connections to kind of figure out how all that's going to be connected. You see a note here, it says a watchman of Bergenworth guards the gate with a password, the sacred adage of the Grand Cathedral. So the password to the gate is an adage of the Great Cathedral. I don't think, I think I do actually go down there in this episode. I go down to where that door is and I need the password. And it's what leads to Bergenworth, or the shutdown version of Bergenworth. And again, there's a whole little side story that deals with them and the church. Again, was there a lot of time between Bergenworth and the church? Or was it like Bergenworth and the church existed in the same time, and then something happens in Bergenworth and the church has to shut them down like they did Old Yarnum? Again, it's just, it's kind of up for speculation right now because you really don't have any time frame on a lot of things yet. I really was trying to think while I was making this episode, like, was there an item description that mentions both of them like as the exact same thing? But it seems like a lot of things are talking about like Bergenworth happened, and then something happened there, and then the church happened, and now something's happening with that, and you're kind of at the aftermath of all that, or you're in something of a dream. And all this is happening. Like, see how this room is just full of just coffins everywhere? I'm like, I don't care if your world's real. I don't think that's the way it's going to look. Regardless of the plague happening or not, they're just not going to leave all that out there, right? So that's why I'm starting to think that this world is very, very much a dream world. But whose dream and what dream that we're in is the question. And that's kind of why insight to me is explained as something that you're seeing through the dream. You're actually seeing what really is going on in this place, and you really need to be the one that kind of breaks through it. And I believe at the end of the the 1/3 of umbilical cord, it says that that you can use it to gain insight, right? And that it really is what breaks the veil, and it lets you see what the insides are. So in other words, you're inside this area, but it actually lets you really see. But then it's like, but what does that mean anymore? So here you are. This is the door that needs a password. It's the jerk door that keeps you from getting into Bergenworth. How you get this password, I have no idea yet. I'm hopefully going to find that out next episode by exploring some more. At this point, I'm like, okay, I got a lot of souls. Let me head back. Let me go do some things. And then that's really where this episode's actually going to end. I didn't fight any bosses, but I did find the shortcut, so I didn't have to use the Hunter Chief emblem. I found a ton of lore stuff. Good Lord, found a lot of lore. Like, it's just crazy. Insane, the stuff that you find in this game sometimes. Like, it's hard to really explain when I found that umbilical cord thing, that how like my mind was like, what? Like, I really was looking at it, I was like, huh? Like, what are you talking about? So right here, this is the way back to the cathedral. And I was just sitting there going like, oh my god, what are you talking? Umbilical cord? What? Could you not find something from Soft? Could you not find something a little more suitable that would make some sense to me? So all this stuff is super Lovecraftian. So I may have to go back and read up on my Lovecraft history and understanding, because right now it's very Lovecraft. In fact, I believe, it's been so long since I've looked up or read anything Lovecraftian, but there's, I believe, something called like a dreamland, and then there's definitely like areas in the dreamland, and there's like things of mentioning of great ones and stuff like that. So you can definitely go look it up, because I'm not 100% sure if I'm even making that up or not. It's like I said, it's been a long time since I've actually looked up into anything like that, but this definitely leads me to believe that they looked up some lore from that and they kind of made up their own storyline with it, which is fine. And it's kind of awesome too, because Lovecraft is very, very weird. If you haven't ever read anything from Lovecraft, it's a very weird world, a very strange world. But it's very interesting, and if you ever read it, it's pretty fun to read. It's definitely worth a shot, but. Definitely look that stuff up. I'm not gonna go into what Lovecraft and all of the creatures and all this stuff that spawned from that writing. So here I'm just making sure I'm not missing any items. I leveled up, I believed, and then I was like, okay, this has been about an hour. I gotta let it go, or else I won't be able to talk forever about. I can't talk forever about all this stuff. So definitely, guys. So again, sorry this episode's gonna be a little late out, but I'll check you guys out later. Peace out. Later, guys. Later.